another thing that we're going to start talking about is like what's happening in the financial data as well, which will probably snowball onto all these things that are happening in the property market.
It's funny, and the reason that I know this is that I've got an interesting story. When when I started trading, there was a group of us that got together and were, we were from different worlds in terms of experience and profession. So Phil, who was a guest on my podcast, had came on and he'd said, he's like, I've got this great trade idea, and it was purple bricks. And he's like, can you explain this to me? Like he says, purple bricks put in their pack that when a sale's agreed, they've marked that down as a sale. And I says, well, it's not a sale yet. And he was like, what do you mean it's not a sale yet? I says, well, when you purchase a property and you put in an offer, it doesn't mean that the property's not going to go through.
Subject to closing.
It's going to be subject to closing, subject to missives, subject to contracts. So it's not quite complete yet. But they were banking their figures on, well, we've done all these sales. So we were looking at the market and measuring what was the likely fall off. So what were they reporting versus what was likely to happen. So we took the market average of the completion rate from sales agreed, and we took the comparative number and asked ourselves, is purple bricks in line with that, or are they projecting miles higher because they're likely to have to re-report their figures at a lower amount, which will then affect their stock price. And he was like, I would have never known that. And that was the beauty of having someone that could understand that really nuanced part of the process. And he nailed his trade. Like, his trade was absolutely pinned on because he'd got the right direction, but his intuition was right, but he didn't understand the particular part. And once he got the information, he was like, right, I'm now confirming that's information that's confirming what I thought. Because it was a case of his whole trade idea was that he thought purple bricks were over committing what their performance would be. And he was right, but he just needed a bit more information to either confirm or to bring new information to test his view, and he got confirmation by asking. So that's why I know these articles need to be scrutinised a little further than just the headline news. But like what you said earlier, you said something like we started off reading the article and you're like, hey, look, what I'm seeing doesn't change. And then we asked about it and you were like, that's actually right, because the agents are coming back to me, because you can see how it draws your attention. I mean, well, maybe it's just what your instinct is, hey, this thing represents the bigger market, so maybe this is what's going on. I'm seeing something different, which is just me doing a little piece of that huge pie, right? So maybe I'm just getting the raw end, and then when we go into it, you're like, no, what you've said actually matches exactly what happens out there. And it confirms what you're seeing.
This is good. This is why we're doing this. You know what I mean? It's for the listeners to reading this kind of stuff, and then what we're saying, and try to match it all up and see the actual truth in the pie, So, well, like a good example that's in line with the article that you've went through there and analysed is in America, when you're looking to measure the health or performance of the housing sector, one of the best ways that you can measure it is looking at the housing permits versus the housing starts. So that's housing starts is fairly obvious. It's when you've put foundations in the ground, you began to build. Housing permits is the US version of you're applying for planning permission to do it. So you require planning permission before you can put foundations in the ground. Like, you need permission to be able to do it before you can start doing it. So it's obvious that there's a horse and a cart situation, and that one goes before the other. Right. So the permits are first and the starts are the second part of that chain. So what you want to look at is that permits are slightly higher than the starts, or in line, they're equal, or there's more going. Because if it's a healthy house builder market, they're obviously looking to apply to build more houses than they've started. That shows growth, right? They're growing if they're putting in more permits. If permits take a sharp decline in applications, then house builders are nervous about what's going on. So they might be starting more properties, but they're not planning to build new ones because they see trouble ahead in the information that they've got on the ground.